That is a career that I have not heard about.
Yes.
Wow.
It's very new to people.
Yeah. You go into this career, like what made you wake up one morning and just say, oh, I'm gonna be a end-of-life doula?
That is a great question.
I've heard about a birth doula,
Yep.
but not an end-of-life doula. Tell me what that is. Right.
Yep. And it was definitely for me, I'm like, okay,
Yeah.
God is asking me to surrender this, and so I am, and I trust that He will lead me where I'm supposed to go.
Powerful, powerful.
Mm-hmm.
Welcome to M-powerTV, where we leave a legacy of hope through conversations that uplift, educate, and inspire. Listen to incredible stories of people who overcame challenges and barriers, celebrate victories, learn from setbacks, and push forward together.
And you would hear all this torture, and then they would shoot.
Want to be empowered? Let's go. Subscribe for more and get this book now.
Welcome to M-powerTV. My name is Lorna Grayling, and today we're sitting with Rachel Langnall from End of Life Doula. That is a career that I have not heard about.
Yes.
Wow.
It's very new to people. Yes.
Yeah.
So I'm grateful that you have me here.
I've heard about a birth doula,
Yep.
but not an end-of-life doula.
Yes.
Tell me what that is.
So basically, I provide non-medical support to people towards the end of life. Doesn't have to be the very end, and preferably it's not the very end, but I would say in the later seasons of life. And I help them navigate all the different things that can come with, facing the end of your life and things that are getting difficult, illness, communicating, finding joy in life, even when you're facing difficulty.
Yeah.
It's all of those things.
I mean, it's an interesting topic because even when I was just, mentioning this to my team and all that, we were talking about end of life, this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to have a discussion with an end of life doula, right? And they were like silence in the room.
Yep, that's very common. Very common. People
Like, you can
usually
hear a
look at
pin
me
drop.
and go, what?
Like, what?
What are you doing? Yes, it definitely requires explanation. Yeah.
Yeah. So what is the difference between an end-of-life doula and just a regular, sending someone to... So in South Africa, we called it an old age home, but, you call it something else in the US.
So end of life medical care is hospice.
Hospice.
And before hospice would be palliative care.
Yeah.
But what I do is different because I don't provide medical support. I'm not a caregiver in the sense of I'm not showering or changing people or, doing that hands-on care that the medical professionals do. If I were to describe to you what I do, I would say I try to help people find peace and joy in that later season of life. And that can look different for many different people. I was a hospice volunteer for 6 years before I decided to do this. I was also a hospice volunteer coordinator. And I've seen... I worked for 2 amazing hospices. It was not here in Florida. I lived in Wisconsin at the time. They provided amazing care, but there are definitely things that they can't do. They don't have time to do. They have so many patients that they have to see. There are little things that I can do to try to make that transition easier for people.
What made you go into this career? Like, what made you wake up one morning and just say, oh, I'm going to be a end-of-life doula?
That is a great question. This was not my career path. I've been in very...
Yeah, you were in the media, right?
I was in the media,
Yeah.
I did speech writing and public relations. I was a reporter and an anchor. So basically, I had a friend that entered a hospice facility. She was suffering with ALS, which is Lou Gehrig's disease, and she basically lost all ability. Basically, all of your muscle activity stops gradually. And
What a horrible sentence to have.
And your brain is completely on top of everything that's happening. So it's a very difficult disease. And I was very nervous to go and see her. And someone had told me she entered this hospice facility, and I was like, oh my gosh, I thought that meant, she was at the very end of life. It was just partially because her care became so difficult and so hard that her husband couldn't take care of her anymore. And so they could provide the care for her. And before I went to see her, I had known her through church. We used to work at a soup kitchen together, and she was the organizer of the meal. She was the one that was on top of everything, and her voice started to go, and I couldn't understand her anymore, and eventually that's how her diagnosis came about. So after I heard she was in the hospice facility, I decided I was going to go and see her. But I was really nervous because I had heard that she couldn't talk anymore. And so I thought, well, what do I do when I get there if she can't talk? So I visited with our priest who had been to visit her, and he said, oh, there's nothing to worry about. She's got a keyboard and she can still type. So she will talk to you through her keyboard and you just have a normal conversation. I'm like, oh, yeah, I can do that.
Yeah.
So that very first visit basically turned into me visiting her every week. And, you know, and she even lived at a facility where she had round-the-clock nurses, CNAs, there's a social worker, there's a chaplain, volunteers. But there were little things that people couldn't do for her that did all those other jobs. And so one of the things, when she lost use of her hands, she got a computer, and I had helped her with this because I also had a cousin who was dying of ALS. And his sister told me that he got a computer that he could type with his pupils.
Wow.
His pupil lingered on a letter, and that allowed him to communicate with all of his, you know, medical staff.
Goodness.
And so I had mentioned that to my friend Janet, and eventually she got that computer. So then we were able to communicate. But one thing that would happen to her very regularly is something would happen, the computer would get bumped, and if it wasn't lined up exactly right, she couldn't communicate.
She couldn't communicate.
And so almost every week when I went, she'd say, I need you to adjust my computer, I need you. And I am not a technical person, but I was like, oh, please help me, God, get this computer in the right spot.
Yeah.
And so that's kind of where it started. And I just felt so, my heart just felt so at home when I was there that I decided I'm going to become a volunteer here after she passes away, which I did. And so that's where I volunteered for 6 years. And it's just an amazing thing. It's kind of where I felt called. And so that's what led me here.
Yeah, amazing. So did you have to go and do some kind of training for this?
I did training for that, to be a hospice volunteer. Yes, there was training. There were books I needed to read. And then for my end-of-life doula training, I went through a training program through the University of Vermont. It's an online training program. There's no license or regulations for end-of-life doulas. You can just receive a certificate, which I did.
Yeah.
You know, I think there's definitely a move afoot to maybe, you know, hopefully get some kind of official certification, but it hasn't happened yet. So it's a fairly new concept. So
it is a fairly new concept, but I think, you know, years ago, death was part of life, right? I mean, we used to deal, or not we, people used to deal with death. It was seen almost every day, and people would deal with death. Now, death is removed from life. You never see death. Ever. And it's kind of a taboo topic. You don't even talk about it. And really, it's only the funeral homes who deal with death, nobody else.
Right.
And so when there's a death in the family, it's almost like an unheard, unknown, undealt with topic. And it's quite traumatic, I feel, for the family who has to deal with this because it's so undealt with.
Yes.
So is that kind of where you come in?
Absolutely. Yeah. This is a big part. So right now I am hosting Let's Talk About Death conversations for that very reason, that if we can talk about death, we can live our lives more fully. When we're not fearing it, we're not worried about it. And also, we need to set up plans for ourselves and our family members. We need to talk about these things so we're not doing it either when it's too late and we're making, like, you know, quick decisions that we don't know if that's what the person would want. But also, you know, my dad has been sick a couple of times where we had some really close calls, and I felt like we didn't talk about these things, you know, and I was having to like talk to the nurses, and they're asking me what my dad would want. I'm like, I'm not sure. And so I think it's just so much more peaceful and better if we can have these conversations before we have to.
Yeah. In your experience up to now, like people who have had conversations prior to someone dying and people who have not had conversations prior to someone dying, like what's the difference in their experiences?
I think that when we can live admitting ourselves, we're all going to die, we're all going to need to make these difficult decisions, when we can address those things and just put them in their proper place. It's not something we got to think about all the time, but it's something we need to accept. Then I think we can live our lives in peace and we can find so much more joy because we're not living in fear.
Yeah, because it's that living in fear part, right? That is still at the back of your mind, lingering consistently, even if you try and ignore it.
Yes. And I think, too, some of that fear, I mean, I don't ever want to leave my kids too soon. That's my biggest fear. But in terms of the dying process and I mean, obviously, I've only seen, you know, I don't know. I've been with maybe up to a dozen people when they took their last breath. Many of them are very peaceful. And I think people in their minds, if they haven't experienced a death, they assume it's a natural death I'm talking about. They assume it's very chaotic, it's very not peaceful.
Yeah.
Now, certainly that's not the case for everybody, and I'm no expert because none of us really are. Just in what I've seen some really beautiful, peaceful deaths and some beautiful things happen at the end of life that, you know, it isn't something to fear.
Yeah. It's already making it sound a little bit easier, even just talking about it now, right?
It is easier. I actually hosted a discussion called Let's Talk About Death at my parish and had the most beautiful discussion. It was a very intimate experience, and basically the only question I asked was, if you've experienced death, would you share what your experience has been? And I would say most of the room was crying by the end because they were sharing their experience of losing a loved one. But there were so many beautiful stories that it really, like several people had said to me on the way out, I feel so much better walking out of here today.
Wow.
And that's the purpose.
Yeah.
That is the whole purpose of what I do. And if that can happen more and more and more, I feel like that's a good thing.
And also just to remind us why we're alive is to remember, like, we are alive right now, like we are gonna die one day, and to plan for that day, but to remember that you're alive, and that's a gift.
Yes.
Yeah.
It is. Yep. And to be able to focus on those things that bring you joy in life, no matter where you are in that journey. I mean, if you're diagnosed right now with a terminal illness, you can still find that joy.
Yeah.
And it's not time to give up and think, you know, well, this is all I got is laying in this bed. There is joy to be found in every season.
That's beautiful. Yeah. Is that something that you deal a lot with, right? Is like people who get that really bad news of a terminal illness, and then that's kind of where you come in to help them through those, I want to say, last months or however long that could be, and then with the family as well.
Yes. And caregiver support is a big part of what I do, because caregivers are, I mean, they're angels on earth, basically. I mean, the things that they do and the time that they devote, and they're exhausted. And so hopefully to provide some caregiver support, but also to find ways to find that joy. I just attended a conference that was amazing in New Orleans. So it was people who do what I do all over the country.
Wow.
And there was a speaker who had one of those little clickers that you see, like when people are being counted, you know, for how many people can fit in a venue or whatever. And she uses that with her patients. And she says, okay, I know you're feeling sad today. I'm going to give you this clicker. And over the next week, every time you feel joy, I want you to click it. And either take a picture or write down, and then next week when I come, I want to go over all your moments of joy. And sometimes just by focusing on that and not on what's going wrong can change everything.
Your knees carry you through every step of life. And when your knees start to hurt, life starts to hurt, right? But look what I found. Oh my goodness. So this is the Nabol PhysioFlex joint massager. This is incredible. It's like a spa for your knees. Check this out. Oh my goodness. All right, so super easy and super simple to use. Delivered right to your phone. There we go. Very, very cool. Comes with a charging thingy. So easy to assemble, right? You don't need to go and read a whole manual, study a degree or anything like that. Check it out. Super, super simple. Oh wow, it's chargeable. So, right, all you have to do is to put it on your knee. Oh my goodness, it feels incredible. All right, one strap, another strap. It's got a nice massaging action. All right, then it's got low vibration and it heats up. It's got infrared inside. And you can sit in the comfort of your own home. PhysioFlex joint massager. There you go. It's compact. You can use it anywhere, at work, traveling, at home, while driving, maybe not. What I love about this is you can use it in the comfort of your own home. Check it out. PhysioFlex Nabol massager. You cannot go wrong. Get yourself one. And you can have pain-free walking. When you take care of your body, you empower your life. I'm Lorna Grayling, and this is your moment to move with power and purpose. Yeah, so just shifting your focus.
Yeah.
Like something so small.
Yep.
And so just focusing on that. We were at a conference and they were speaking on the power of gratitude. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yes, same thing.
Same thing.
Yeah. Yep.
Just shifting your focus on being grateful
Yes.
rather than, like you say, just focusing on the negative and things that go wrong.
Yeah.
How that can actually change your health.
Yes.
It was scientifically proven, and it was very fascinating because they scientifically proved how you can be grateful and change your health.
Yes.
It was phenomenal. I was like, what? And then obviously the opposite is true.
Yeah.
Like you can literally think yourself sick.
Yes.
Like by being ungrateful.
And
right?
just stressing yourself out.
Like, yeah.
I mean,
yeah.
I think about it.
You can
so
become
I've only
sick
been
by
in
being
Florida for a year and a half.
ungrateful.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I see the
Yeah.
sunsets and
Yeah.
I'm like, oh my gosh, the sunsets here
Yeah.
are amazing.
Yeah.
And that can just bring me joy for a half hour.
Yeah.
Just thinking about how beautiful that looks. I
Yeah.
mean, it's just the simple things sometimes.
It's
It doesn't have to be
beautiful.
complicated.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What role does spirituality play for you in the work that you do?
Well, it certainly brought me here. After being a volunteer for 6 years, and then I was a hospice volunteer coordinator, I worked in that role. I found I really missed that time with the patients. Just being one-on-one and doing those little things. And so then I moved to Florida and I was trying to decide, okay, what am I supposed to do? Am I supposed to go get another hospice volunteer coordinator job? That'd be the easy route. But I've always thought about starting my own business and doing this, but I was afraid. And then I did a retreat at our parish, and the retreat itself was wonderful, but after the retreat, there were a group of us then the group that attended were encouraged to stay on, and basically we kind of did a Bible study for 6 months so that we could put the retreat on for the next group. And that was an amazing experience. And so I have 12 sisters through that group, and I really felt that that whole formation process helped me hear God saying to me, take the first step.
Sure.
Don't be afraid. So I decided, okay, I'm going to take the first step. And then if it leads to the next step and the next step.
Yeah.
So that's why that's how I got here, was taking the first step.
Wow.
And here we go.
Get out of the boat.
But it
right?
is definitely part of, you know, what brought me to this profession. That being said, I will work with people of faith backgrounds or not faith backgrounds. Certainly, I think there's a lot of questions that people have at end of life about spirituality. And again, I can't say what does or doesn't happen. So I'm just there to support them wherever they are. And I will meet them wherever they are and do whatever I can to help them find peace.
Amen.
Yeah.
I love that, taking that first step, because you got to get out of the boat.
Yes.
To take the first step, to
Yes.
walk on water.
Yes.
And that fear not, like, don't be afraid. I think they say 360 something. How many days are in a year?
365.
365 times in the Bible it says to fear not. Right. So one scripture for every day.
Yep.
That's how many times we need to be reminded not to be afraid.
Not to be afraid.
And yet we're still stressing and stressing when that's a form of fear, right?
Yep. And it was definitely for me, I'm like, okay,
Yeah.
God is asking me to surrender this, and so I am, and I
Yeah.
trust that He will lead me where I'm supposed to go.
Powerful, powerful. So when someone has a end of life doula, you know, what is the difference of not having an end of life doula and then having an end of life doula? So what makes the difference?
Yeah. So some of the things that I would do, I would say legacy projects are a big thing that I feel really strongly about. A lot of times when I would sit in somebody's room when I was a volunteer, and everybody was different. Some people would be perfectly fine with me coming in, opening their curtains, bringing them some water, chit-chatting for 5 minutes, and then they were good. It depends on the person. But there were some people who would want me to stay in their room my entire shift. And I had to, you know, go from room to room. So even in that capacity, I couldn't stay as long as I might have liked. But when I did sit with people that were very social and wanted that interaction, most of them wanted to tell me their life story. Everybody wanted to know that their life mattered.
Sure.
They wanted me to know they weren't always, you know, laying in this bed or only, you know, confined to this chair and maybe using a walker to move or, you know, whatever. And it was just the most beautiful thing to sit and listen to somebody's story.
Sure.
And so that's something I could do as a legacy project for someone is write their life story so their family members have it from generation to generation.
That is beautiful.
It's, you know, so much of that. I mean, even when my dad was in the hospital, I remember I'd come in and he'd be like, yeah, I told the nurse today that I was a Harley rider, you know, and I'm like, of course you did, you know, and he was a barber his whole life and he loved to tell the stories. My dad's super social because, you know, when he was sick, he didn't want them to think this was it, you know, this was all there was to him. And so, so that's something I could do. Or again, I'll use my dad as an example. He has a lot of photos in photo boxes.
Yeah.
I can come in and say, all right, let's put these all in albums and let's talk about all these memories while we're doing it. Or somebody who's a great cook. We can do a recipe box with all of their recipes that can be passed down through the generations. So that, I mean, I still make my grandma's recipes and it just warms my heart because I think of them when they made this for me, you know.
Just leaving that legacy, right?
Yeah, and so it's kind of focusing on some things that a caregiver won't have time because they're too busy, they're too overwhelmed, they're so stressed because their emotions are all wrapped up in there. So I can see some of those things and try to help on those fronts. Or one thing that's also just near and dear to my heart, and it's one thing I did as a volunteer, is sit vigil at the end of life. you know, oftentimes family will be sitting with a person for several days and they're tired.
Yes.
And so I can come in and sit with their person so they can get some rest. And I mean, it could even be there just in the next
just take
room.
a shower sometimes,
Yes.
right? You
Have
just
a cup
need
of
like
coffee.
5 minutes.
Yes.
Yeah.
So sitting vigil and planning for that vigil time, or even a little bit before then, you know, what does that person want? Would they like prayers being said? Do they want hymns playing in the background? Do they want Beatles music playing? Candles lit? Scents in the room, you know, or no scents. Some people are sensitive to scents. Just let's map it out so it's exactly the way you want it ahead of time. And then when that time comes, you can make sure their wishes are, you know, adhered to. Another thing that I think, you know, I think of friends that I've had who have gone through really difficult deaths in their family, and sometimes you say to them, "What can I do for you?" And they're like, "I don't know. I can't, my brain just can't even think of what I need."
Cut out, yeah.
And
from
so
the
it would
trauma.
be, you know, I can help. All right, I'm going to organize some neighbors to bring you guys meals for a week, or go grocery shopping for you, or whatever. Take the car in for an oil change. Trying to arrange those things so the caregiver can focus on just spending time with their loved one that's precious.
But this is beautiful because someone can literally book you for a loved one that is going through, you know, a death in the family or something like that. That is amazing.
And
I
this is how
love
it's
that.
different,
Yeah,
you know.
yeah.
And it's definitely an education piece, because people say to me, "Do you work for hospice?" And it's totally separate. And I am a huge proponent for hospice. I think people should get on hospice the very moment they can and not turn away those services. But what I do is a little bit different.
This is absolutely beautiful. I love it. I love what you do. So what would you recommend for people who are like, no, I don't want to talk about death. Like they're so scared to have any conversations about death. Like they cannot even start like how do they even start this conversation around the table? Where do they start? And how do they even start?
Well, they can call me and I can help them.
To facilitate.
But I think too, sometimes it's simple questions. It can be like, well, what are you afraid of? Or what do you want your legacy to be? What would be the perfect death if you could pick it? I think it's just asking a whole bunch of questions. Trying to think of, I have an actual deck of cards that it's called a death deck.
Okay.
And it has just a variety of questions. Some of them are even like humorous.
Yeah. I was just going to ask, like maybe start with humor. Yeah, maybe bring some humor into it somehow. Because I think it's just the fear and the unknown for some people that is just so far removes the topic for them that it's tough.
It is.
Yeah.
And, you know,
and maybe memories, maybe trauma.
Yeah, you don't know what someone's bringing.
What they've been through.
Yep. And that's a legitimate, all of it's legitimate. There's, you know, by me talking about it doesn't mean I'm making light of it, because it's, I mean, when I was in the hospital with my dad and I thought he was leaving, I was like standing and couldn't move, basically. So everybody reacts differently depending on the situation, and there's no right or wrong. There's no right or wrong. The only thing I would hope is that people can plan for it so that it can be the best that it can be, with the least amount of trauma, or because I do believe we can find peace in it.
Yeah. Is there anything that you would wish that people would understand more about death?
Well, I think ultimately not to fear it and to be open. It can be very peaceful. Like I can tell you some of the time, and it can be very inspirational. That's another thing. Like people will ask me, well, don't you feel sad all the time? And the answer is absolutely not.
Wow.
I feel more inspiration than I do sadness 90% of the time. Now, it doesn't mean I haven't gotten sad when somebody's passed that I've spent time with, but there's some inspirational things that you see when people are in their last weeks of life that give you a lot of hope.
Wow.
And so I would just tell people to, try to be open to what can happen, and just do as much planning as you can ahead of time so that you're not caught off guard and having to make major decisions at a time where you're traumatized or exhausted or unexpectedly dealing with either illness or death.
I love that. And not to have regrets, right? I think that's the worst.
Yes.
Is to not have regrets. And I think to have these conversations up front is to be able to talk about it, to have the opportunity for people to say, I would like this, or I would like to have the opportunity to apologize or to talk about it, or to have my legacy out there, or to have this cookbook, or to have that. And I mean, what a beautiful opportunity, or have these conversations, because regret's the worst thing in the world.
And you brought up a good point, is the whole forgiveness issue. I mean, you don't want to be taking your last breath and not have forgiven someone, or them not forgiving you, and you're
when you could have had the opportunity on conversation.
And that's a big thing as well that I do. I can't solve those problems. I'm not an expert on any of those things, but I would encourage them to have discussions. Part of my background is communications, and I think communication is a really important topic for people who are sick, and making sure that things are not left unsaid. That is another legacy project that I feel really strongly about, is if, maybe it's too hard to have the conversation, but let's work on a letter then. Maybe we can write a letter for that person. And, if they can't write anymore, you tell me what to write, and I'll write it for you, and you can handle it that way. But just not to let those family dynamics create angst and negativity, and, instead find peace.
Wow. Well, you have just totally changed my mind and rocked my world. And thank you so much for everything that you do. And this has been amazing. And if anybody I know goes through a tough time, I know now what to get them as a voucher. This is amazing.
Thank you. Thank you. I appreciate that.
Thank you for joining us.
Yes.
Well, that is it from me, Lorna Grayling, and M-powerTV. Do not tell me that I do not teach you anything. Now you have learned about an end-of-life doula. So if you want to get in touch with Rachel, have a look on the screen. Her details will be on there. It will also be in the show notes, so check out her website. Do not forget to like, share, and subscribe. Leave us a comment. That will really help the algorithms. And until next week, goodbye.